Okay, I think it's 3:30. In order to start just on time, we'd like to introduce our guest speaker today, who is one of our professors here at UTRGV. It's a big pleasure to have you here, Dr. Schneider. Stephen Schneider is a poet and scholar. He founded the MFA in Creative Writing at UTRGV. He's an elected Texas Institute of Learning member. He's a pioneer in culturally relevant literature, and this is very, very interesting because this is something that we have here. He is a co-creator with Rivka of two bilingual art exhibits and books on borderlines, fronteras, and the magic of mariachi, la magia del mariachi. His poetry has been featured on NPR, an American Life in Poetry, and at the Texas Book Festival. This is very interesting. I think it's a very different perspective of the art and humanities from what we usually present here, but it's going to be really a really big pleasure to have you here and to hear this presentation by Steve Schneider. So thank you for joining today, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah. Special thank you to Dr. Gladys Maestra for inviting me to present in this important Brain and Beyond seminar series, sponsored by the Memory and Aging Center at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. I also want to thank Neira Garcia and Claudia Alanis for their assistance today with the technology for the presentation, and hopefully that will go smoothly. As a creative writer and literary scholar, I've long been interested in the topic of today's presentation, ekphrasis, a term I will define for you shortly. Recently, when I learned of the Dementia Prevention Research Initiative of Texas that will dedicate $3 billion, yes, billion dollars to dementia prevention, research and dementia prevention strategies, I reflected on the 3 ekphrastic exhibits and 2 books that I have co-created with the artist Rivka. Could these exhibits and books of poetry and art be possibly useful in preventing cognitive decline? Or more positively, promote brain health by increasing neuroplasticity, creative thinking, linguistic competence, and memory retrieval? Now, one of my key sources of reference to affirmatively answer this question is the book entitled Your Brain on Art: How the Arts Transform Us by Susan Magsamen and Ivy Ross. These authors make a compelling case that the arts and aesthetic experiences will improve your health and well-being and enhance your ability to learn and flourish. Magsamen led me to the NeuroArts Blueprint Initiative, which she co-directs and which I will refer to later in my talk, and also the International Arts Plus Mind Lab that she directs at Johns Hopkins University. What I want to do with you today is A, define some key terms of my presentation, B, share with you a taste of our 3 ekphrastic exhibits to inspire what I hope will be an aesthetic experience for you, C, conclude my presentation with reflections on the cognitive benefits of ekphrasis and the neuroarts, and then invite questions, discussion, and commentary on what you have seen and heard today. So we're going to start with some definitions of terms from the title of my talk, This slide is simply called Neuroaesthetics. Neuroaesthetics is an interdisciplinary field that studies the biological and neurological basis of aesthetic experiences, exploring how the brain perceives, processes, and responds to beauty in art, nature, and design. It is a growing community of multidisciplinary investigators researching how the arts and aesthetics affect us. Ekphrasis, another key term from my title, is defined by John Hollander in his book, The Gazer's Spirit, Poems Speaking to Silent Works of Art, as the act of making the image speak or interpreting it, moving beyond mere description to a dynamic interpretive relationship between word and image. There's an exchange between word and image. For Hollander, ekphrasis isn't just describing a picture. It is a complex act, poetic act of engaging with a visual object, making it come alive in words, and exploring its presence and meaning through interpretation. And then finally, borders, because we're crossing borders with poetry and art. Borders are often defined as geographical boundaries separating two political or geographical areas or countries. The Rio Grande is recognized as the border from the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, between the USA and Mexico. However, borders are also defined as forming an edge along or beside something. For the purposes of this talk, the artist Rivka and I are crossing the border between art and poetry. And in our ekphrastic exhibits, we hang the artwork beside the poetry so that viewers can cross from one border to the other easily. And because the poetry is in English and Spanish, the poems linguistically cross the border between these two languages. Okay, so those are some of the key terms from the presentation that I'm making here today. What I want to do now is share with you an experience a bit of each of the three exhibits that I've co-created. So we're going to start from the Poetry Art website with a short video. Yeah, this is, before we play the video, I'll just basically say a few words about this project. This project really began in the early 2000s after my wife, the artist, and I had moved to the Rio Grande Valley, and we started taking trips along the border, both sides of the border. And she would sketch and draw the people that she saw. And over time, accumulated a body of drawings called Border Lives. And I selected 25 of them to write poems about that are in this book. This is the cover of the book. It won an award from the Texas Institute of Letters for Design. The barbed wire that you see there represents the river. It represents the border wall. It represents the boundaries between the two countries. So I thought it'd be a nice way to start by playing this video, which is an introduction to this project, but also to ekphrasis. So we could start the video, please.
She awakens each day early to walk the streets of Nuevo Progreso, where she competes with other child vendors of watches, silver bracelets, CDs of Tejano music. Poets have always been interested in art, and there's actually a classical term to define this relationship between poetry and art, which is called ekphrasis. When I was at Syracuse as an undergraduate, I studied with W.D. Snodgrass, who had won the Pulitzer Prize, and he had done a series of poems about famous impressionistic paintings, including The Starry Night by Van Gogh. I think my hearing him read those poems and seeing the paintings had a big influence upon me. And so when my wife started to do these drawings and paintings, As a writer, my response was to write poems about the figures in her work. I stand with these beaded necklaces outside La Fogata each Saturday afternoon, laughing. I like to listen to the young children sitting on the curb with their accordions playing in the sunlight for shiny dimes. The tourists from El Otro Lado toss into paper cups. This particular project, Borderline, Growing Border Lives, is especially important to me because it's a collaboration between my work and my wife's work.
When I go to paint, I'm responding to each subject. For an artist, the elements of design are essentially our words. And I chose this little boy because I wanted to respond to the sadness in his eyes, which I couldn't even paint as sad as he really was. I couldn't let myself because it would be too sad a painting. With him, I chose to have this kind of dark, ponderous kind of value scheme. It's not like his little sister, where she just has a few dark spots against the same color paper, this kind of mid-value green paper. But he's like in a Rembrandt painting, he's light against the darkness that's surrounding him. She has these little points of color. I put them in there to remind me that she's a little girl, but she has to live such a serious life so young because the economics of where she lives. They see the art of themselves on the wall. It's different than going to museums and always seeing art about something other than yourself. So it's a way of honoring the people of the valley.
The very last poem in the book is called Disappeared. It was inspired by a portrait my wife did of a woman at a Mass for the Disappeared in Guatemala. The poem is simply called Disappeared. Disappeared into thin air, disappeared into black night, disappeared in broad daylight, disappeared for wearing a Star of David, disappeared for wearing a cross, disappeared for belonging to a union, disappeared in Chile, disappeared in Guatemala, disappeared in El Salvador, disappeared from Ciudad Juarez, disappeared from Maquiladores, disappeared from the face of the earth, disappeared.
These border portraits caught my eye when I first saw them at the University of Texas Pan American, and they draw me in even now. Ordinary folks rendered with love, compassion, and intimacy at a time in history when love, compassion, and intimacy are in short supply on borders, especially when it comes to the Tex-Mex border. Hooray for Steve and Rivka and the magical work they are doing crossing fronteras. Hooray for Wings Press for publishing this celebratory book when we need it most. Que vivan!
Borderlines is a true marriage. Poetry and art, English and Spanish, north and south of the border. I'm telling you, such a kiss is this book that you oftentimes cannot tell which came first, the poem, its translation, or the artwork. Que besito es este libro.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That video was produced by actually an internal unit at University of Texas Pan American at the time called Real to Red. And they did some wonderful work, and we were very fortunate that they produced this video for us. I want to scroll down a little bit on the Poetry Art website to a couple of the drawings and poems. Yeah, we can go down to the last one here. Okay, two important things I want to mention. Just scroll up a tad. One thing I want to mention is we really wanted a text that was bilingual to reflect the bilingual, bicultural nature of our border region. So if you click on Spanish, you can see the Spanish translation of this poem. En su oreja derecha trae un arate color de rosa. Okay, there you go. A little Spanish. Now, these translations were done by Jose Antonio Rodriguez, who today is a professor in our Department of Creative Writing and a very prominent poet. I was fortunate at the time when we were doing this to have him work with us when he was a graduate student. Okay. And so, or maybe he was a lecturer, I can't quite remember. But today he's a full professor in the creative writing department. The translations are excellent. And so the poems are in both English and Spanish. Now we can go to the English. The other thing I want to mention to me, and this oftentimes comes up when I give a presentation on ekphrasis, what comes first, right? The drawing or the poem. And classically speaking, the artwork always precedes the writing, and the artwork is a catalyst for the writing. Now, today, when forms are more flexible, sometimes people pair poems and works of art that may be, or sometimes the art may be paired with a poem that's been written. But in our case, we follow the classical pattern where the poems have been written in response and inspired by the art. So this one is the very first piece in our book, Borderlines. If you just scroll down a little bit to see the picture but not lose the title. Okay, that's good. Okay, that's fine. You can leave it there. I don't know if this comes through in the video, but this little girl has a little pink stud in her right ear, and she's holding 3 handbags, and she's selling them on the street of our border town, Nuevo Progreso. In her right ear, she wears a pink stud. Her lips are sealed and will not share the secrets of her family. The 2-room house with dirt floors and no running water. Her mother makes doilies and tablecloths sold at the basilica. The handbags draped over each wrist and around her neck and stitched by a cousin who lives in Matamoros. They hang from her like ornaments. She awakens each day early to walk the streets of Nuevo Progreso, where she competes with other child vendors of watches, silver bracelets, CDs of Tejano music. She is intimate with the alleys of this border town, beggars with tin cans, children playing the accordion, stray cats. She will never learn how to read and write. She leaves only traces of her footsteps on the muddy paths beside the Rio Grande. One of the things we're trying to do, a couple of things we're trying to do in this project is portray the humanity of people who live and work along the border and some of the social issues that impact us, including literacy and poverty, as well as a celebration of life along the border. We can go to now to one more from the website. Scroll up to this little poem, to the next poem. This is a portrait of a young boy. You see young street musicians in border towns out on the street playing at a very young age in hopes that somebody will toss a coin or a dollar bill or whatever into their cup. This is called 3-year-old street musician. You hug the accordion as if it were your baby brother and look out at the world with the sad eyes of a panda bear taken from its natural habitat. You play a song for all the children to hear who stand in the rain with a candle in one hand and a cup in the other hand. You play for all the lost children who have disappeared in wars, in the crevices of earth, in floods of the seas. You play a song for all the children who go hungry. Scroll down. For all the children who sleep at night on dirt floors, for all the children who never saw another butterfly. So those are two of the poems and drawings from Borderlines. Before we go on to the magic of mariachi, I wanted to show you a slide from the Borderlines PowerPoint. Claudia and Naira, could we go to that? It's slide number 17. Okay, this is a picture of a beggar and daughter also on the streets of Nuevo Progreso. And you can see the pathos, the pain, especially in the mother's face, right? They're hungry, they're tired. And these drawings were especially important to Rivka when she did them. They were done when she was recovering from an automobile accident. We had stopped at a red light in our hybrid Honda Civic on 10th Street in McAllen, and were rear-ended at high speed, sitting at the red light. And two of her vertebrae were crushed. She had spinal stenosis, and she needed a cervical spine surgery, which she had at Valley Baptist after living in pain for several months. And when recovering from the surgery, I'd say 6 months to a year later, she began this series of drawings. And I asked her again about it today, and she said two things. One is that because she had been in so much pain, she could identify with her subjects, in this case, this mother and daughter, and feel a connection, a sense of empathy between her as the artist and them as the subject. Secondly, drawing itself was a healing process for her. It allowed her to get into a flow state and escape the trauma of the accident. It's interesting that the authors of Your Brain on Art comment on this as follows. At a neurochemical level, the act of drawing has been shown to release serotonin and endorphins that foster a more generous, open frame of mind. Specific studies into the neural effects of visual art production and mood have shown that drawing, by changing brainwave activity and increasing blood flow to the frontal regions of the brain, has a positive effect on our psychological resilience. Okay, maybe we could go now to the magic of mariachi, which is our second project. You see in back of me today one of the paintings from this book, the Ballet Folklorico piece, and also another painting from it on my left to my side on the sidewall. And I think to change the mood, this is us at the Austin Museum of Art. The second slide, if you go to, that's the cover of the book, The Magic of Mariachi. This was us with Borderlines in front of the Austin Museum of Art at the Texas Book Festival. The introduction to this book, The Magic of Mariachi, was written by Dr. Dalia Guerra, who was the founder of our Mariachi Atzlan. And when we were in the midst of the pandemic, she sent me a video production of some of our Mariachi Atzlan musicians, which I just loved. I was teaching a course called Writing in a Time of Crisis. And this video came to me and I shared it with my students. And I wanted to give you the experience, because music is part of the neuro arts, of this video of these musicians playing. So we go to that? I think it's slide number 13. Yeah, perfect. Just want you to enjoy this. We got to go to the Nero, are you there? There we go. Can we turn up the volume? This is Pajarillo.
Pajarillo, pajarillo, vuela si quieres volar. Yo te recorté las alas para verte caminar. Me dijiste que eras firme, como la palma del llano. Si la palma fuera firme, no la picara el gusano, no la tremolara el viento, ni la sacara el verano. A mí me pueden llamar vuelo relámpago rayo. Si me pega buena brisa, vuelo más que un papagayo. Yo sé quién anda de noche allá por el vecindario, y sé cuando ladra el perro, y sé cuando canta el gallo, y sé cuando están dormidas las muchachas de mi barrio. Para, compadre. Sí, señor, esos muchachos. Pajarillo.
Wasn't that fabulous? So this was produced during the pandemic. I think the musicians were in separate locations, right? Because we were, spread out during that time. And it was extremely inspiring and uplifting, and became part of my course on writing in a time of crisis. So the tone of the Magic of Mariachi exhibit and book is quite different from Borderlines. We could go to the, Claudia, to the Poetry Art website, please. And scroll down on the Magic of Mariachi link at the top of that website. Thank you. That's fine. You go to the artist statement. That'd be fine. Oh, well, maybe pause there for a minute and go back. You could the Magic of Mariachi exhibit. Yeah. One of the nice things that happened with this project is that we were invited to China, where the work was on display. This is me on stage with the president and the Communist Party chairman of the university. All the institutions there have party chairmen, and the president stole my hat from Texas. These are some other photos, but those first two were from China. I want to mention today that we have Robert Gilbert with us. Robert facilitated this trip to China. We had an exchange with some art historians from Hanyang Normal University that Robert worked with, and they took an interest. Oh, that's me with Dahlia Guerra. We don't need to look at that. And they extended us an invitation to travel to China with the exhibit. These are the translators there, these two young women. That's the exhibit in China, and Robert Gilbert on the far right, who also designed the text panels for our work. This is the party chairman on my left and the president of the university on my right. So that's a little show and tell of our trip to China. You could go down now, please. Keep going down. Okay. One of the things I wanted to mention is how we've been embraced by the Mexican-American community for our work. Juan Felipe Herrera, who was the first U.S. poet laureate, Latino poet laureate, also Mexican-American, wrote for our book, "The paintings are luminous, passion-fired, and bring us into a majestic example of beauty, art, love, and life struggle. This is a book of a living and expanding cultural movement. I am in awe of bilingual mariachi magic." So when I got that blurb sent to me by the publisher, I was, knocked over, really, and just so gratified by that response. I'm just going to read a couple of poems here. All of this was by way leading up to some conclusions, right, about the brain and ekphrasis and preventing dementia. But in order to get to those conclusions and invite discussion, we need to first have the experience of ekphrasis. So I'm going to read a couple of these from this book, The Magic of Mariachi. Again, the poems are in English and Spanish. I'm gonna open the book and find this one to read for you. Page 16, it's in the book. It's called Lost in La Música. He has sunk so deeply into the music, the air around him has turned indigo. He has mastered the ratios, the proportions of the notes, the melody stored deep within his memory. He transports his listeners, lifts us above the heaviness of this world. Our neurons firing across synapses of time and space. I didn't write that line for today's presentation. Our neurons firing across synapses of time and space, across the starry summer solstice sky, above the Sangre de Cristo range. The heat rises from the sagebrush desert as night falls, when the musical beats and rests of his playing replace the noisy, roaring revving of this world. We sink deeper and deeper into the vastness of space, perdidos en la música. There's some imagery in this poem from northern New Mexico. I see our dean is with us today, and I know he traveled to Santa Fe in northern New Mexico and knows how beautiful it is there. And the Sangre de Cristo range and the sagebrush desert. The reason they're in there is in 2012, when I was working on this project, I had a residency at an artist colony, if you will, in Taos, New Mexico, where I spent 3 months. And this has to do with the creative process, right? You just have to disconnect from everything else and get into a state of mind. Some writers call it the dream state, where you can be creative. And so this poem and several of the others in this book were written when I was there on that residency in Taos. Okay, we'll do one more. Scroll down, Claudia, to the next one. Or there, okay, we can go up. This is called The Sound of Romance. What's interesting about this poem is that it's in rhyme and meter. I haven't talked much about rhyme and meter, but one of the challenges in putting these books together is I wanted a diversity of forms. So there's villanelles, there's sonnets. This is just a simple 2-quatrain poem with an ABAB rhyme scheme. It's called The Sound of Romance. But there's some research to show that rhythm and meter and rhyme have a particularly salutary effect on the brain. And this is discussed in the book, Your Brain on Art. I'm trying to find this poem, Sound of Romance. Okay. She holds her guitar with great poise and grace in this night of the full moon, when the ballads she plays create a place where men in the jardin swoon. Her lips like crimson cherries to be kissed by the secret one she loves. The notes that she plays for their midnight tryst, only a poet may write of. So that was a fun one to write. Playing with form and rhyme and meter is a lot of fun. I always incorporate that challenge in my creative writing classes. And this was just a wonderful project. We got to go to China with it and crossing borders with poetry and art. I'm going to work up to one or two samples from my students because I incorporate the teaching of ekphrasis in my classrooms. And I want to talk about the retrieval of memory. We're going to see that in one of the poems that my student wrote, who's with us today. But before we do that, I just briefly want to show you our most recent project, which is very different from these first two. If we go back, Claudia, to our website, Poetry Art. Claudia, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we're going to the Poetry Art website, please. Oh, I guess we were on it, but we want to scroll down to go to the top, and it says Last Poet in the Woods. It's the third link over, Last Poet in the Woods. There you go. Thank you. Click on that. Okay, and scroll down. So when we spend time in northern New Mexico, sometimes in the summer on excursions, Rivka would do a body of watercolor work that was about landscape. So she moved from the human figure to the natural figure in this work and has done a whole series of watercolors. And I chose 37 of them to write poems about. And we had an opening of the show last year at Quinta Mazatlan in McAllen, the Eco Nature Center. So one of the concepts we're dealing with here is biophilia. If we could go to the artist statement. Actually, the best thing to do would be to play the video. Play this little video here with the red arrow. This is an introduction to this
Last
exhibit.
Poet in the Woods is an exhibit that consists of 37 of Rivka's watercolor paintings, mostly landscapes, that were done in northern New Mexico. And she has a whole series of these paintings, and I chose 37 of them to write poems about.
There's a tradition called ekphrasis, in which poets respond to works of art and in poetry.
Me, to engage with her paintings and engage with nature was a transformative experience. And it's that energy, it's that transformation that we experience in the power of nature that I'm trying to communicate in my poems written in response to her paintings.
To create that unity, to express that basic message, the design calling that you had for what I'm experiencing.
So this exhibit right now, this is an exhibit. The manuscript's under review, and those are photos from the show at Quinta Mazatlan. Again, Robert Gilbert designed the text panels, and the exhibit was actually funded by a Sea grant from the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, and our provost. So hats off to him for that support. And, each of these is very precious to me. This particular one brings me back to that time that we spent in beautiful northern New Mexico. I thought I would read a couple of these poems for you. Then we'll segue to a couple of student pieces, and then we'll take comments. Well, we'll conclude and then take comments and questions. So, Tres Orejas, you can see these are 3 mule deer with their ears perked up. And in the background, you can see 3 peaks there on the horizon and a kind of a sunset with the crescent moon. Trying to find this poem. I've got the manuscript right here. Okay, page 17. A lot of these paintings and poems have been published in various journals. So we're proud of that, and that will help, of course, with the publication of a book. This poem is actually made up of 3 haikus, one haiku stacked on top of another. Crescent moon, evening star, hang above tres orejas, together again. How many evenings you have painted the gloaming sky, orange, blue, purple. This silhouette, many ears listening intently, where coyotes howl. Okay, so haiku, 575 syllable structure. Each of those is 575. Our students love to write haikus. They're fun form and pretty easy. We can go down to the next one. Actually, I want to end with one, keep going. This one is called As You Like It. This is one of the first pieces we did. And the painting is called Aspen with the Green Guitar. I love this painting because of the juxtaposition of the instrument and the tree, the aspen tree, which is iconic up in northern New Mexico. This was published up there at the Taos Poetry Journal. The poem is called Minerva in El Salto, or As You Like It. Minerva was a figure in Shakespeare's play As You Like It, and the poem makes reference to her. What calls her to the trail each morning, the one that winds through the canyon beside the fast-running stream, cold with snow melt, adjacent to Pueblo lands? She is out the door before my second cup of coffee in floral blouse, blue jeans, low-cut hiking shoes, her fanny pack filled with brushes and palette, spray bottles, watercolor paper, a thin knife, poised to discover the lines and textures of her walk. That stanza is referring to the artist, to Rivka and her materials, her tools. First, there is the line, either straight or curved, like the life we live, both straight and curved. A line has direction, but which way to turn, left or right, up or down? What lines will define her shapes and patterns? And there is texture, rough or smooth, much like her living in these mountains, far from the sea level of her former self, banished like the Duke from his court, only to discover tongues in trees. She hangs the green guitar on the branch of an aspen, as only a painter could, no mere mortal, but a goddess who will create 1,000 works, flowers that sing beside the creek in summer, snow-covered obeisant pines in winter. Okay, well, that's our most recent project. We're dealing with the concept of biophilia, which Edwin Wilson defined as our empathy and attachment and affection for the natural world. And in this particular project, we're trying to promote that contact with nature, what the neuroarts call an enriched environment. So that's what that's about, an enriched environment. And that's what we're trying to do there. So I'm getting off of this.
I think you froze, Dr. Schneider.
Well, we lost him.
Yes, we lost him. I think we're trying to get him back. Let me see. I apologize.
Oh, don't worry. It was your fault. Hear him. Okay.
What a beautiful poems and paintings. And May, what can you say about Pajarillo while he's coming back?
Yeah, that was a very interesting rendering, a mariachi rendering of the Venezuelan pajarillo. That's very interesting. Very well done, by the way. Very interesting. Well, it's a shared culture. It's has the same form as the music from the jarocho culture in Mexico. So that's a very shared information because they were built on the same roots where the same time the people came to Venezuela in the 16th century with the popular music from Spain. They also went to Mexico and they share a lot of the things. Most of the good guitarists that came to the New World, they brought this music, very popular music, and okay, this derived into the popular music of the Americas. Very good. It's so interesting to see this, how
Yeah,
developed.
right. And what I noticed because my ears are used to, I mean, we in Venezuela, we all know this song,
Oh, yeah.
but with different instruments. I mean, the harp, the same, but and the guitar,
Well, they play that small guitar that is called the vihuela. It's actually a descendant of the Spanish vihuela from the 1600s. It's very interesting. Okay, we have the Professor
I'm sorry.
Schneider
We have him
again.
back.
Don't worry, it's good.
I'm very sorry about that.
Don't worry, it's
Yeah.
good. We're enjoying a lot the presentation. Has a lot of
Oh, good.
things, interesting things
Thank
here.
you. Yeah, I wanted to call up one of my students' poems and picture. Miranda, are you with us? Miranda Garcia?
Yes, I'm right here.
Okay, so Claudia, I might need your help with this. I need to go to Brightspace to call this up. So I don't want to go off screen again. So what I'm going to do is stay on screen and I'm going to go to Brightspace and then I think I'll try to share this. Would that be okay, Claudia?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to Brightspace now. It's loading. Because it's very important that we transfer our knowledge to our students, right, into our community. And I taught an advanced poetry class this past semester where one of the assignments was to write a poem about a work of art or a family photo. And Miranda wrote a beautiful poem about a family photo that I want to try to share with you. And then I'll conclude. Okay, so Claudia, I have the link. Should I go to share screen now?
Yes. Go to share screen.
Okay. All right. So share screen.
At the
Okay.
bottom, you should see where it says
Yeah.
share.
Yeah. Okay, then the Chrome tab. And here it is. Share. Okay, and now I'm going to open up this picture. Okay. Can everybody see this picture of these little girls? Hello?
Not yet. Not
Not
yet.
yet.
Not yet.
Not
There
yet.
we go.
Okay, it's coming. Yeah, it's here. Yeah.
Okay. Miranda, could you tell the group a little bit about this photograph and your poem and then read the poem for us? Miranda is an undergraduate at UTRGV. And I love this piece, so I wanted to share it with the group.
Hello, everybody. My name is Miranda. A little bit about this photo. It was taken when I was about 5 years old. It's a picture of myself and my siblings. The two little boys are twins, and then the one sitting on the ground there is my older sister, and then my youngest sister over here on the right-hand side with the bright pink shirt. And then that's me with the bangs, with the white and pink shirt. I'm gonna start reading the poem. Once we sat beneath the sun, 5 small hearts that used to beat as one. The hay was warm, the sky was wide, laughter drifted side by side. Candy bags crinkled, bright and sweet, dust and sunlight at our feet. We didn't know how fast it'd go, how childhood fades, how the distance would grow. Now the days have slipped away, names and faces time will say. Yet in that frame, so clear and so small, we never grew apart at all. The world moved on, but there we stayed, frozen children made of day. When I miss you, I hold this near and find us whole forever here.
Thank you, Miranda.
Thank
Isn't
you.
that beautiful? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I was just so touched by Miranda's poem. Thank you, Miranda, and for sharing that with us today. And it's a good example of how family photographs can be used, right, to trigger memories and creative expression. I think that would be a wonderful exercise for members of our community who are trying to prevent dementia, or for caregivers who are working with family members who may be in the early cognitive decline stage, and for students and even for veterans. So I want to conclude with some final points and then open this up for discussion and comments. To do that, we need to go, Claudia, to the Borderlines PowerPoint, where there's a couple of slides. I think it's slide number 3 towards the top. Yeah, that one. So I wanted to just make a few points about my sense of what the cognitive benefits of ekphrasis are. And I would certainly welcome your suggestions today, because we've got some experts here on the brain. One is that works of art, including, can we make this a little larger? Is it possible to enlarge this? Thank you. Works of art, including photographs, serve as catalysts or prompts for the imagination to discover and express narratives and metaphors in poetic language and forms. 2, ekphrasis promotes expressive writing and linguistic competence. For example, the FAR Literacy Project had English language learners tell their own poems and stories in response to the images in Borderlines Fronteras. 3, ekphrasis promotes the discovery and expression of the diversity of human cultures and how we create individual, social, and even political meaning through interpreting works of art and photographs. 4, ekphrasis promotes both neuroplasticity and the recovery and expression of memories through the exchange of word and image. And 5, the viewing of and engagement with ekphrastic exhibits can be used as a neuroarts intervention with populations at risk for dementia, as well as healthcare workers and caregivers. So those are what I perceive to be some of the cognitive benefits and applications of ekphrasis. There may be more. And then I'll conclude with what's going on a little bit in the field of neuroarts. If we go to, I think it's slide number 5. Claudia, keep going. Okay, if we could enlarge this one as well.
It's not going any bigger, Dr. Schneider. That's the largest too.
Okay, well then I'll read these. Neuroarts applies the science of how arts and aesthetics change the brain. You can go back to the slide. It's slide number 5 in that PowerPoint.
Yes, there we go. Sorry.
I think we're doing pretty good with the technology today. It's a few little glitches. Are you on the Borderlines PowerPoint?
Then okay, I think hold on, it kicked me off the sharing. There we go.
Okay, slide number 5 from the Borderlines PowerPoint. There we go. NeuroArt, you were on it. There we are. NeuroArts applies the science of how arts and aesthetic change the brain to improve health in society with applications in reducing PTSD, traumatic brain injuries in veterans, managing dementia and Parkinson's symptoms, enhancing learning, combating burnout in healthcare, designing healing environments, fostering community well-being through music, dance, visual arts, and urban design. This emerging field uses evidence-based practices to boost cognitive function, emotional resilience, social connection, and overall quality of life across all ages. The World Health Organization finds evidence of the contribution of the arts to the promotion of good health and the prevention of a range of mental and physical health conditions, as well as the treatment or management of acute and chronic conditions arising across the life course. Some states and some organizations are beginning to apply the NeuroArts to their programs. In Massachusetts, for example, NeuroArts applications focus on using music and creative expression for addiction recovery and mental health, led by the Boston Community NeuroArts Coalition, integrating arts into healthcare via programs like the Massachusetts Cultural Council's Culture Prescription Initiative for social prescribing and fostering research through the NeuroArts Resource Center, which is affiliated with Boston University. They fund related projects in training in creative arts and neuroarts, connecting science with community health needs. And that's one of the things I'm interested in doing, is connecting ekphrasis with our community health needs. And we can talk about that in the Q&A. And finally, there's a lot of really interesting articles and research coming out in this field. Recently, a publication by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology called Artful Minds has a focus section there called Leonardo in the leading international peer-reviewed journal on the use of contemporary science and technology in the arts and music and the application and influence of the arts and humanities on science and technology. And this recent publication marks a milestone for scholarship in the field of neuroarts. Okay, well, you've listened to a lot and heard a lot. I thank you for that. So this is a lengthy seminar, but I wanted to use the 60 minutes that Dr. Maestra gives her presenters. And now, as I understand it, we'll be open for comments and discussion. So maybe Dr. Maestra, you would like to lead that, or how should we proceed?
Well, it's a fantastic presentation, and thank you for the opportunity to feel and to imagine all these things through your poetry and the beautiful paintings. But I always, my guests are first. If any of them have any comment or question, that's, totally adequate at this time. So meanwhile, they'll think, and please, I can go on for quite a long time on this topic. So is in your opinion, how different is the poetry itself to the other type of poetry that are not considered ekphrasic? And then we'll give the word to Dr.
I think
Gonzalez.
that's an interesting question, right? Because the vast majority of poetry collections, right, books, are text-based without illustrations or works of art. And by the way, the artist in our collaboration does not like her work to be referred to illustrations, because they're not illustrations. Illustrations are when someone comes along and illustrates a poem, but these are works of art done independently that I'm responding to. So I have some individual collections of text-based poetry. And the creative process is different, I think, but there may be some similarities. It's different in that when you're engaged with ekphrasis, the visual work is a stimulus for the imagination, for the brain, that can trigger memories or narratives in the writer. And there are many ways to approach an ekphrastic piece. You could write from the point of view of the subject in a painting, and I have done that, and others have done that. So there's this interchange, this synergy. We like to say that it's a whole greater than each part when you're dealing with ekphrasis. In the case of writing a text-based poem without a work of art, one still has to get into a creative state of mind, but you're working from within, I think, rather than looking out at a work of art. But writers do look out. They look out at nature, they look out at people. So observation is a key part of the creative process. One thing I will say about this, in terms of like appeal of the work, ekphrastic books have great appeal. They have greater appeal than just text-based collections. Okay? I mean, I'm talking about audience, sales, right? Book sales. Why? Because the pictures, whether it's art or photography, draws readers in. And then they go to the poetry. Okay? But it's the visual that attracts readers. And so we've been fortunate that our ekphrastic books have done very well. My publisher says they're, in the poetry world, where you sell 5,000, you're doing a lot. They're bestsellers, okay? And Borderlines is in a second edition as a paperback. So why is that? I think because of the visual component. I hope that's
okay. I will comment on this differentiation that you made between observation and imagination. But I want to give Dr. Gonzalez the opportunity to make a comment or a question.
Yeah. Please introduce what department or field you're in. I'm curious to know. Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Gonzalez. I'm a professor in the School of Social Work.
Okay.
And I loved your presentation.
Thank you.
In a very, very long time ago, when I was a graduate student in my master's program, I did a independent study, a little research project in a nursing home, where I used a theory of life review and reminiscence and used television shows from, say, 30, 40 years before to just to get some ideas of let them watch and what came up. And what came up was lots of memories. And I think I measured self-esteem, and some there was a rise, and I wasn't sure if media or, like, say, television would fit in within this idea.
Well, I think that's really interesting. One way to use, say, old TV series or shows is to have the group, the individuals in the group, whether you're working in a nursing home or some other setting, keep a journal and write their memories down in a journal. There is a body of research out there that expressive writing through journals has a salutary effect on one's well-being. So that would be one approach. It doesn't have to be necessarily a poem. But I think the idea of using other media to stimulate memories and journaling could be very interesting and helpful.
I actually like that idea with regarding journaling. And again, the whole idea, we're talking 1997.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a thing that I did. That it's how I became a researcher, but never revisited that. And as I'm listening to you, it seems it's something to look at. In particular, with your suggestion of the journaling, which does make a better sense, I think. So, but thanks.
John, and I think this is a good time to bring that back. And by the way, where are you? Where are you? In which mountain are you?
So that, I'm sorry. I'm reporting from the Winter Olympics in Milan. Okay.
Oh my God,
That's my
wonderful.
the funny part with during the football season, I decided to do a background of the football stadium with the football team playing. And when I used my headphones, like I am right now, one of my colleagues, we were in a different meeting, but she was also in the same meeting that I was in. And she sent me a message on Teams saying, "You look like an announcer." So,
Yeah, good,
so
good, good.
it's like anyway, but
Yeah,
thank you
yeah.
for
No, thank you for sharing
yeah
that.
but
We
thank you for
get
that
to know
feedback.
each other.
And yeah, thank you for that feedback, and that's something that
Sure.
I might explore. Me in considering prevention. Is that something that's doable? But uh, I'll shoot you an email. Maybe we can have another conversation.
Good. Thank you for sharing that, John.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Awesome. So while other questions or comment come, I wanted to comment on a few things. First of all, in the brain, really the circuits of visual imagery are overlapping with the actual perception. So it doesn't really matter if you see it or if you imagine it. It's go through the same circuit. So that's why, it is, but of course, with imagination, you kind of use a little more areas of the brain. And because different areas come into play, like when you are seeing, the visual areas are so powerful. They are very overcoming. I meaning that like if you see and you feel, it's a different thing. You feel more when you close your eyes, for example. It's because the visual we have of all the senses, the vision, it's very important. But when you imagine, you are using the same networks, but you basically it's more costly for the brain to bring other senses. So basically, you have to, think about it. Like trying to smell and trying to see, always to imagine, to having a visual imaging will be faster and more detailed. And but it will have the same networks with the areas that are related to emotions and that are related to thinking, actually, to remembering. So what facilitates the creation of a mental imagery and connection with areas like the limbic system that are related to feelings, the melancholy, and all that. So the more you sustain the visual image, you have more time to bring different areas of the brain. That's why, a fixed image in a way could have even a more profound effect, emotional effect, than, like a video. And of course, it will depend of the content, and but having the same content, just capture in in an static way, gives to the brain opportunity to capture different details and to make the right associations and to connect with certain experiences. While on a video, that's why you go to the movies, and you are basically, you might feel immersed in the movie, and you can cry if it's something that might remembers you, but usually it's an immersion. It's not a sensing of your own. It's not about transcendence. It's more about immersion in a movie. So art in any way or form, of course, but static art, visual static art, give us the opportunity to bring more of the brain, and also give us the opportunity to experience our inner world, including imagining, connecting to other experiences. So they become what architects call affordances and psychologists call affordances. They allow you, they give you opportunities. So when you have like one of those beautiful pictures, you have opportunity to focus on certain aspects that may be or not related to the artist or to the story, but they allow you that opportunity. So I guess that, and so that's one. The second thing is that the visual pathways in the brain overlap around 60% with language. That's why when we say a word that has a corresponding, like guitar, we immediately bring about the image of the guitar, and that's why we speak out the words that we are trying to, when we are trying to remember an object, for example. And that also has to do with naming. Like people may say, I'm not good with, so they are two different paths, the naming and the visual imaging. So I see this from the therapeutic point of view, and not only for people with memory disorders. I see it for everyone. And of course, art doesn't need to be justified. Art doesn't need to be therapeutic. Of course, just by existing, art is necessary and valuable for society. But in terms of therapeutics, I think that there are certain stimuli that will facilitate that you bring about your emotions, your own identity, and perhaps memory. Even if it's even if you are not trying to remember, but it's almost instantaneous that you try to make correlations, the comparisons, and things like that. So I can see that as an enrichment of an environment. And if we add the poetry, which of course has a lot of different stimuli, the sound, the rhythm, might be, something that we certainly can use to support and to give opportunities to people with memory loss to experience this inner transcendence, identity, and perhaps to mobilize some memories that may help them to connect with their family and with the cultural identity.
Well, I mean, that's a very beautiful point, and one that I want to, explore further with you. Is I mean, you've made several really interesting points. One is, of course, that this kind of activity can be valuable for anyone, right?
Yeah.
But also, in particular, for those who are at risk for cognitive decline or who are already experiencing some form of cognitive decline, that these types of interactions, right, with art and poetry can trigger certain memories or positive experiences or associations even in the viewer, in their brains, that could be beneficial. And I don't think this is just a passive, that's another point I want to make. It's just not a passive activity. To engage with the art and the poetry requires attention, right? And focus. But also, this type of work can be used as an exercise or a tool or a learning experience where someone generates, right, their own work, just as Miranda did in class, and others have done in class. And oftentimes they find it to be one of their more rewarding learning experiences because of memories they uncover or and discover in the process of writing their ekphrastic pieces. So thank you
No,
for those.
definitely. And I think that, when I speak with from the physician scientist point of view about art, they say, well, it's a decoration. And, tells me more, about the people that says that.
Right.
But it also perhaps, perhaps the lack of art in the public spaces in the valley, has led, and the overwhelming presence of art in the house of rich people and the lack of it in
Yeah.
poor houses.
Right.
I think that uh, tells me that there is a cultural still perception that has been going on forever, of course, about the utility of art. But I think we need to bring this notion, not only that environment will look better, the cities will look nicer and more attractive, but that actually this is something that it's required for brain health. In all the blue zones and all the areas of the world, art is part of public spaces.
Uh-huh. That's fascinating. I could not agree with you more. Unfortunately, the valley is characterized by a lot of strip malls and billboards of injury attorneys advertising their services.
Yeah.
So, yeah, more art and less commercialization. I know our university tries hard to promote the arts, and we use our performing arts center to display exhibits. And but compared to other universities, in some ways, we're still impoverished. We do not have a university museum. We do not have a preservation of art project or curators. So, what are our priorities as an institution in this field, and how can we influence them? Maybe a topic for discussion.
Oh, I absolutely think that the public space is ready for it, I really
Mhm.
think so. Everybody agrees that we need to humanize the spaces. And even within our Institute of Neuroscience, we brought some art, and it took us, it was hard. It was very hard because of the, I don't know what kind of uh, segregation about local art, like being too political, so I think that people might be afraid of that the art is a very powerful voice. But if we take that to argument and support brain health, and the connectivity between the people, I think we might have a good chance.
No, that's encouraging. Are there others out there who would like to ask a question or make a comment?
Well, I think this is, sorry, who was talking?
No, go ahead, Dr. Rodriguez.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think it's very interesting what we said here today. And of course, it's not only the circuits of the imagination, it's also the circuits of the sensation and feelings and the emotion that comes all together here when we are projecting ideas on words. It's the same thing. Yeah, as Gladys said, you can read a book and you can feel what the book was expressing, or you can see it in an image in the screen. So that's the power of the word and the power of the poetry or the prose. So definitely it's super interesting this, how this can be used potentially for in a therapeutic way. Definitely the first part of the therapeutic is related to the expression of the feelings. So that's very important. When people can express their feelings, they can advance. And this is very interesting when people are having depression or anxiety disorders. For memory problems, for cognitive problems.
It's a psychiatrist.
Yeah, sorry. So for people with memory problems, with processing of ideas, definitely reading is a very good positive experience, even though sometimes they can experience a lot of difficulties trying to keep the pace. As my recommendation is that as soon as they can still keep the capacity of reading, they should try to keep it on top, because once you let that go, it's going to be very difficult to retrieve the capacity to keep ideas in your mind and read big books where you have to remember things that happened at the beginning, and that's a big problem for people with dementia. Definitely, it's a challenge. So I remember I had a group of elderly neighbors who had a book club, and that was really therapeutic for them. Yeah, and we brought some Spanish poetry to them, and they were really encouraged to read it, even though some of them were English monolinguals. They had to translate and to practice, and it was a very top thing. So definitely here what you are doing, the bilingual practicing of poetry, is very interesting. Reminds me of my father, who is a poet too.
Are you in the Institute of Neuroscience? Or?
Yeah, I am. Yes, I'm working here with Gladys. Yes, definitely.
Okay, great. Thank you for your comments.
Yeah, let's keep in touch. I think this is very important. I think this can, now that we are going to have more ideas and possibilities to have new grounds for more and better research with the deep print and other initiatives. Yeah. I think it's the proper time to start thinking about what things can we put here together. Why not?
Yeah, I'm excited.
And I think that it will be beautiful to have a series of workshops where Dr. Schneider put the scientists and the clinicians to write some poems, and so we have the sense of capturing an image. I mean, and being guided by a real poet. So I think that will be awesome. We need to know each other better. I think that's the collaboration, and we need to begin at any point. Over there in the arts or in the neuroscience, I think that there are several observations that we can make with our instruments in people doing something, but we really need to learn. We really need to know more about where to look in the brain and
Yeah.
and how to really acquire, and perhaps with the help of social work and psychology also, we can see how can this translate into therapeutics, and maybe with the designers and policy advocates, we can target the policymakers in the region. They've been very receptive, I think. To me, at least, they've been very, very receptive in terms of the importance of improving the cities and our spaces. So it's been a pleasure to have you here with us, Dr.
My
Schneider.
pleasure was mine. Thank you so much for having me. And I would look forward to leading some of those workshops and
Awesome.
continuing our dialogue. I think it's important that we reach out right beyond our disciplines to one another,
Yes.
and
I
we
imagine if we had more uh, poems spread around the campus. I will certainly would love to have more poems at the Institute of Neuroscience.
oh we can work on that for you.
Oh,
Absolutely.
that will
Yeah,
be fantastic.
yeah. An
And
exhibition of poems here in the lobby. That would be great.
Okay,
yes,
Yeah,
we could do that. We could have an
yeah, let's do
exhibition.
it.
Um, um, the last poet in the woods we could bring over to the Institute of Neuroscience or part of it.
yes, and some work for the students as well.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
also
I'm
we're
interested in promoting our students' work and maybe creating an online gallery.
that
Of
will be awesome.
yeah.
Um, so that will be fantastic. So this week it's a quite busy week for the neuroscience team. Um, we have our Memory and Heart Connections event this Thursday, which is a free event, bilingual, and our main partner is the Brownsville independent school district, but it's for adults, it's for their parents, it's for the community, and you are welcome to attend. We are bringing people from Nigeria, from Colorado, from Monterrey, from San Antonio. So it's a big effort that we make to bring science to the community. And on Friday, we are going to have a small group. If any of you are particularly interested in the morning, we are going to have a workshop where we are going to discuss some ideas with the speakers with deep breath in mind. And I forgot to mention that on Thursday afternoon, we are going to have a tour with the speakers through the main library in Brownsville with Dr. Schneider. It's going to show us the exhibition that it's there. So very excited about that. Thank you so much. And we are going to visit the Human Genetics Building, which, we kind of brag about one of the most amazing collections of biosamples in the country, really, not only in South Texas or Texas. So we are very happy about that. And so that's going to be this week. We're going to work with the speakers even until Saturday. So if any of you are interested, you are very welcome to reach out and make it possible. And Claudia, we have for the following in 2 weeks.
I don't have the speaker for that one. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
So Neida, it's starting social work.
Yeah, she started. This is all she gave me, so I wasn't sure.
So she started the master's in social work. So Claudia, it's going to be covering for her for some time, for this semester at least, because she has the class in person in Edinburgh, so she had to leave earlier.
Yeah,
But
the next seminar of this series is going to be on February the 10th, Tuesday, at the same time, 3:30. It's going to be presented by Dr. Suad Gadar. She's going to talk about impact of COVID-19 on the mental health and emotional well-being of UTRGV students. That's
oh,
the
that
next one. Yeah.
sounds so interesting, and she's such a wonderful speaker.
Mhm.
So it will be good to know. I had long COVID, when during the time, and art helped me so much. All forms of art, the music, the visual art, the writing, and so I'm very curious to see how Dr. Gadar can help us bridge that idea of COVID and art and mental health.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you
Well,
so much. So I
Thank
will
you.
see you soon. And if you have any suggestions for speakers, if you want to talk, if you want to help us to invite students, we welcome students also in these settings to share their work. We will be absolutely delighted to do that.
Thank
So
you for this wonderful opportunity to present today and for this seminar series, which is so important and fascinating right now. And I'll look forward to seeing you this week on Thursday and Friday. Okay.
thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Okay.
All right.
See you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Schneider.
Nice.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.